something that we know needs to be talked about as we continue forward in higher ed. And that is how to provide comprehensive faculty support without overextending our resources, not overburdening ourselves, but avoiding those burnout type moments. How can we really give to our faculty, really get them to where they need to be without, sacrificing on our particular ends as well? So this is a discussion. We are hoping that everyone will participate, come off mute, participate in the chat. Feel free to, turn your cameras on if you feel comfortable doing that. As we try to learn from each other what different institutions are doing, what they see works well for their faculty. Right. So leading us today, I am one of the leaders. I'm Danielle Patterson. I'm an instructional designer at Colorado State University, and you have my email there. It'll be provided. I did a PDF of these slides in the presentation slides in Discord. And then also with me is...
Hi, I'm Jesse Thompson. I am the instructional technologist for the same team, the learning production team at Colorado State University Online. And my email is there as well. And we also have a faculty support section in the Discord. I can put the direct link to that conversation specifically is there in the chat, because we do want to, really just enable a conversation between all of us and continue this conversation outside of this 50 minutes. So.
Right. So some objectives that we have, kind of what we hope to walk away from is that we can identify the highest priority areas of support for faculty during, course development or even just course facilitation. It doesn't just have to be before the courses go live. It could be while we're working with them as they're delivering their courses. To evaluate modes for delivering support to faculty and determine which are the most effective for your particular institution. You might hear ideas today that they're not going to work given your particular resources or the type of faculty that you work with. So hopefully you do hear something though that you can take away for yourself, and to develop strategies to provide that faculty support while managing your own bandwidth and your resources effectively. And so a loose agenda here, we'll kind of go through each of these slides with more detail. First off, why do we need to address this? And then we'll really get into the heart of the discussion with three, high-level topics. What are the needs? What are some effective methods? And how do we balance that support? Probably give about 10 minutes to each section. So we'll try to, even if we might really get into one particular topic and really get going with it, I might, or Jesse even might say, okay, let's move on, not because we don't want to continue that, but because we do want to address as much as we can in this particular time. So why do we need to talk about this? We all know we're all in a space where we are having to do more with less, and that is going to be across the board. We know budgets are getting cut. We know that resources are always tight, and we also are kind of seeing a bigger move into that online education space as people are trying to reach more learners. A big conversation our team has been having, this next point, is we really want our faculty to learn to fish. We want them to be able to take care of themselves, their courses themselves, not because we don't want that job security, but because we cannot be fixing for them every single thing. We don't want them to fully rely on us for minute things. And we still want to provide excellent resources. We want to make sure quality is going out the door. We want to make sure students are getting everything that they could possibly get from an educational experience, but in a more manageable way. Jesse, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, just that a lot of our conversations on our team have been about how to properly prioritize resources. And we're having, one of the reasons this is prescient for us is that, like Danielle mentioned, we're um, trying to identify ways to use what resources we have most effectively. I think for me in my educational career, education has sometimes felt like triage, right? Like where can we devote our resources in the absolutely most effective place because we don't have enough to do everything that we might want to be able to do. So that's kind of how like the perspective I guess that I'm approaching this conversation from is like what are the most effective places and ways to distribute whatever resources we have um, to, like Daniel said, create the best learning experiences we can for our students. So, yeah.
So, just a little note before we jump in. We really want to keep this positive and solutions focused. You will have a question where we get to talk about what's not working, but we really do want to focus on, hey, we've tried this, it's worked. How can we maybe build on it? This is what we have seen as a way that we can move forward. We all know that it can be easy to linger in the negative and to have that timed event, but that's really not what we want to use this time for. And again, this is a discussion. We really hope that you'll feel comfortable coming off of mute and providing your ideas, your thoughts on this and what you're seeing, because we know what we're seeing in our team, but we don't know what that looks like across the board. And if there's common themes or if there's maybe even something we need to be thinking about coming down the pipe in the future. So with that, let's kind of start talking about first, what support do faculty need? Where are we seeing those the demands from instructors? What are the common topics that faculty are maybe approaching and asking, frequent questions on? And this could be, it's tech. Okay, well, what part of the tech? It could be, pedagogical. Is there a certain part of online learning that we're seeing support is needed? And are you seeing that it differs maybe, across the board? Who's coming with what types of questions? So, one. Kristen, yes.
So I'll provide some context on my institution before I share my answer to that question. So I work at a business school at the University of Utah. So we're like employed by the business school. We have a like video production team and 3 instructional designers and 2 instructional design assistants. But typically what I see with my instructors that they want help with is they just want to come in and record videos in our studio because they look really good, and often they're not interested in talking to an instructional designer. They have a high sense of ownership over the courses, so it takes a little bit of begging to get them to work with us. And then lately, a lot of our instructors, particularly in our information systems department, have a lot of questions about AI cheating tools, specifically those browser extensions that students can use in the LMS and an online quiz.
Yeah. That aligns a lot with what we're seeing as well. A lot of um, questions about most of the AI discussions seems to be motivated around like how can I ensure validity with my assessments? How can I ensure academic integrity? And then a wide variety of like tech support sort of issues. One thing I was thinking about was that like in my high school classroom, there was a tendency for the students that were really self-directed and really motivated. A lot of times ended up getting less attention from me as a teacher because they were doing great on their own, and I tended to focus on students that needed more support. And there can kind of be a bit of a correlation to that in this context too, where I think the people that are really like um, advanced with this type of stuff um, tend to like come to us less for those type of things because they are interested in figuring out a lot of things, for themselves. And I think in those contexts we still have things to offer them, but it's kind of sometimes harder to direct resources towards that type of person because they're figuring out a lot of things on their own. But again, it's for us, it's a thought about like where are those resources going to be the most effective.
Christy.
Hi, Jesse and Danielle. I'm part of their team. So, and I actually can show me. Hello, I'm here and in the flesh. I really love what you just added there, Jesse, at the end about like people who are really well versed and like know what they're doing and maybe might not come to utilize our services that much. And I actually have a faculty that I'm working with now who is really like tech savvy, understands the tools that we're using and does them well, but also is just so limited on time and needs somebody else to help them do that thing. And so I feel like oftentimes the like gateway for instructional design is to like help faculty do whatever it is that they need help doing. And sometimes that might be out of scope. For instance, when I worked at Arizona State, instructional design is embedded within these different schools and different colleges in Arizona State. It's not centralized. So each unit does something different. But I was one of the people that like on the first day of the class, I would go into the classroom and like say, like, do you need batteries for your mouse? But like, do you need help setting up your PowerPoint or your screen or something like that? And that's a pretty out of scope for instructional design, right? That might be more like classroom support and technical support, but it helped with what the faculty needed. And in the case with the faculty that I'm working with now, she just needed to update. We use design tools, City Labs. So we have like all of the branding for CSU and all the beautiful widgets and things that you can add to your pages. And she just needed help doing that. And so that was like a really low entry point, but at least she knows that somebody can help support her with those things, even if she can do them herself. And sometimes we do that and provide that service just to take some things off their plate. I feel like that happens quite frequently in the instructional design space.
Yeah, and to Kristen's point, like we can only kind of offer what people are willing to accept.
Yeah, I think on that, like kind of sometimes what's going out of scope is those that are, that support, and it might be even like they don't fully understand the support that they might need, or, if we kind of even are suggesting like, hey, you might need help with, can I help with updating your discussions to create more interaction within your students. Those topics about like we can help you find a way to grade faster, and then you see the light bulb kind of turn on and they're like, oh yeah, that is a problem I'm having. It may be not, they're not even, what's the phrase, you don't know what you don't know, with some of these faculty because they think they know maybe the tech so well, or they're like, well, all I need are videos. I don't need anything else in my course to go all that well.
Jared, did I see your hand up for a second there?
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I actually was just going to bring that to the front, what Danielle was just talking about, which is this sort of, there's this just-in-time component that feels like it's the urgency because it's happening in real time for their students, for the instructor, versus sort of if you were to extend this question, what support do faculty need to like exist in the future in the space of education that we want to see? So trying to think about how to create authentic assessment in this space. Like the immediate need feels like I need to know whether or not students are authentically, integrity wise providing me with real their own thoughts, their original thoughts. But in the long term, it's a little bit more of this: what are the skills that they probably need and the support that they could probably get from persons that are likely on this call in order to make it feel like higher education, their money, their time is well invested. And I think that it's really hard because you usually get the coalition of the willing to come to you. You want to drop all these coins and get as many deposits as you can by helping them out with the small stuff, and then it can go radio silent. With those, hey, could I help you out with? And it's like, yeah, we'll get to that later. So it's just I appreciate the recognition of that as well.
Thanks, Jared.
I'm willing. I love that phrase. That is fantastic.
And I totally agree. Like, I handle a lot of our like kind of post development support tickets, and I think when we get kind of overwhelmed with when the workload gets too high, it can be tempting to move quickly on each given instance of like, okay, this it's going to take me a lot longer to train this faculty member or whoever to do this rather than to just go in and fix it myself. And I really liked what you said about like, what skills are we wanting to help people develop, right? If we are looking to create a better online educational space in general, what skills do people need that they maybe don't have, and that is more time consuming on the front end? And it can be tempting sometimes to go, well, yeah, maybe I'll try and teach them those skills later, but like I need to fix this now, and it's going to be faster if I just do it myself.
Yeah, I know I can jump on that. I'm very guilty. Our team does such excellent work with those design tools, and we create these truly beautiful spaces for students to work and learn in. And an instructor comes to me and says, hey, I really want to change the format of this. I found this really great resource. How can I put it in there? And I should be sending them a resource of, hey, here's how you work within this page. Let me record a video of how I would do it. And then you do it, and you're learning to do it on your own. But it'd be so much quicker for me to just jump in there and do it and make sure that you do not damage that beautiful page and space. And of course, making sure we've got accessibility concerns and links are working appropriately. And we know that so many students are like, well, that student is accessing that page today, and it better be good to go. But then we're setting ourselves up for, well, that instructor is going to come back in 3 weeks because another page, oh, I just got this research, because we know in higher ed, a lot of their research comes back and they're like, things have changed, I need to update. And so, yes, to that point, very much so. And so maybe it is, are we starting to see a common theme in what those needs are that we can, kind of start thinking, as you said, laying in the future there.
Any other sort of, is it about time to move on to the next question, Danielle?
Yeah, let's do that. All right, so here let's kind of dive into, your experiences, whether at your current institution, previous institutions, maybe you have been a faculty and been in that situation where you received the support, or I mean, even all of us, we develop ourselves professionally. Is there a method of support that's almost kind of worked for you? What methods of providing that support, for developing that support, have been effective for supporting faculty? Is it creating You know, resources, the just in time, hey, here's a resource I can send to you right away. I know you need it. Is it, you know, just kind of serving that jump in and do it for them kind of idea? Are there particular tools maybe you've used or you know of and would like to try out that you think could be really effective? And then towards the end, because again, we don't want to focus on the negative. If you're wanting to share something, you're like, just don't, nobody do this. This was awful. Don't waste your time. We definitely want to hear that as well. But let's start with a positive mindset there. All right. Like I can kind of start. I know I have two particular faculty members coming to mind where they responded really well to, they wanted to create video quizzes. They didn't know the questions they wanted at that time, but they knew they'd want to do it in the future. So I created, I think it was a Loom video at the time, walking them through that step process, how to do it. And I did get positive feedback from both of those instructors. But again, that was a kind of a just in time reaction to what they needed.
Christine in the chat mentioned that I think it's also a challenge to determine when a faculty member really does not have the technical skill to learn it and do it on their own. So it is better for all for us to just do the work. When do you fish or cut bait? Kind of in reaction to the previous question. And I know like one like for me, one basic like problem that we had was sort of filtering requests to the right places, you know, that getting somebody that needs help, whether it's a student or a faculty or whoever, to the right person, right? There's a big distribution of different levels of permissions and interaction with different parts of the platform. And so it can sometimes be a trick just to get that person to the right role to even help them with it. And we've been having more conversations sort of across teams to try and streamline that more so that, you know, requests are going to the right places.
I can share what we've done at the business school to resolve that problem. With a lot of the courses we build, we use a template, and in the template, we created a help contact page that is simply just a table of like, for this type of issue, this is who you contact, and these are the different ways to reach them, whether it's phone number, chat, or a ticketing system. And we've seen a lot less instructors reaching out to us when they should have reached out to someone else because they already have that resource in the courses we've built with them.
I love that idea. A really good guided, because I mean that is a big question for a lot of people. Is I have a problem, I don't even know where to look to solve my problem, so I'm gonna go to the one contact that I know. But directing them to a solution, and maybe even in that template, kind of giving you might be having issues with X, 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 go to Y, 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 to, you know, so if their problem's not they think it's a very bespoke, a very just unique to them type problem, like, no, it probably falls under this category. You can still reach out here. Thank you. I like that resource.
Hello, Danielle and Jesse. This is Greg, your colleague at CSU. One thing that for me, and hopefully it's applicable to our audience, is I used to be, and I still do find myself occasionally just doing kind of task-driven course development, treating it as a project, which it should be to some extent. But in the past, I really didn't touch on what's an important element in this whole thing for me is the relationship that you encounter and build with a faculty member. And that part of that relationship building is just finding out kind of where they're at, right? I mean, you know, are they on 7 committees, and I'm exaggerating, but 7 committees and teaching 5 courses and doing a research paper and so on and so on, right? That can really kind of drive, what your relationship is and how you would support that particular faculty, right? Versus someone like, gosh, I've never developed an online course. Show me, tell me, what this is really cool. And so for me, a change over the years has been just recognizing when I first had that encounter is to, build that relationship, find out where they're coming from a technical perspective, a content perspective. Have they ever used objectives in their residential course, right? Do they even know what objectives are, or a rubric as an example? And so just a good kind of feel out process at first. And then for me, that kind of just drives kind of that support for that faculty.
Oh,
Sure, relationships are such a huge part of what we do, and definitely have to make sure that we're bringing those to the forefront. And kind of it goes back to a point made in the discussion earlier, or the chat earlier, about figuring out where they are. Are they going to be able to learn? Everyone can learn. We have that growth mindset, but is it going to be worth that effort to invest it as well? And he mentioned also, Greg, you mentioned, the objectives, and I see, Brad, your comment in the chat about huge thing that works is just getting to understand objectives. And that if you set an objective, make sure you're measuring that objective, not, some random knowledge as well. And that makes a huge difference for instructors. Jared.
Yeah, I was just gonna piggyback off of kind of what Greg was saying with, create the relationship. You want to be able to know where they're at. But then I think the one thing we've really realized in the past couple of years, because we have, a pretty robust onboarding system for our adjuncts to make sure they understand our expectations and set those early. We have observations that we do that are a certain, structure. We do professional development that we can provide currently, some stipending for, and extend some learning, but trying to make sure that the infrastructure of those components are aligned with the idea of meeting people where they're at. I think it took quite a while for us to be able to do that with the observation process, because you want them to be able to speak into and customize it as much as possible. Yet you want them to be speaking to how they're aligning toward the expectations, best practices, furthering things that they're doing. Onboarding, you don't just want to chuck everything at somebody at once, and not the same stuff to everybody, because they all have different needs. And I guess I would ask y'all because this is about like balancing and trying not to overextend. I think that takes a lot of people power, and I know a lot of like schools in units in our specific university that's like, I'm a one-person show. How can I create a sustainable, aligned infrastructure that meets people where they're at, and then you feel like you're in this reactive space all the time. So just a thought and question for you all and anybody who's on.
Yeah, for sure. 'Cause, I was curious, you mentioned the professional development. So my first question was, what topics are you all covering in your professional development sessions? And, how much of them, we'll kind of speak to this in the next question, but it's that idea of how can we be more proactive versus reactive. And one thing we on our team, when we're working with our instructors and we're starting this very intensive course development process, is part of the selling point is you're going to work hard right now. Your brain's going to hurt. There's going to be a big time demand on you to get this done. But in the long run, it's going to make things easier. Is that, something that we need to consider is, yes, we need to have that balancing act, and we cannot overextend, but do we have to put in greater work now to see, that light at the end of the tunnel, so that we are, maybe we can, again, we don't know the future. We don't know where funds are going to be. We don't know what kind of personnel we're going to have in the future and things like that. But can we be setting, oops, sorry, drop that. Can we set a playing field now that makes it easier for us to be, victorious and more at ease later, we say. Anyone else?
I'd like to read a few of the things in the chat. Like Tanya said that short how-to videos were working for their faculty. Christy said having a consistent process when helping faculty design their course. Brad had mentioned the talking up front about aligning objectives and assessments. Um, Christy mentioned that CSU has a large team. It's been about creating evergreening training materials, kind of like Tanya mentioned. Um, Brad says considering adjunct instructors is important. Um, Seeing adjuncts teaching the same courses at multiple universities, which is what I was doing when I was teaching at CSU and Front Range, um, um, and yeah, I just wanted to reiterate the like value of relationships. Like I'm coming to it from like kind of a help desk perspective because that's what I'm doing now, and it's different than when I was kind of developing with instructors because I would see them on a scheduled basis, and we were working together closely for this period of time. And one of the things that Helga Heiser and I have been working on is kind of trying to get more connection to faculty outside of just the help desk email, because I think sometimes it can feel, I know when I send an email to a help desk, like I don't necessarily know how fast it's going to come back. I don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know what kind of help I'm going to get. And so I definitely have seen that as I work with specific faculty more and more and get on calls with them and meet them and talk to them directly, that trust develops where it's like, okay, Jesse is going to respond quickly to me, is going to do his best to find solutions for me, is going to help me develop skills to do this better. And I find that they come back a lot more. So that trying to like just even show up in like a departmental meeting and be like, hi, I'm a real person. I respond to these tickets, I think helps create a little bit of a like, okay, I know who's behind this, kind of anonymous email. Helga, did you want to add to that real quick?
Yeah, and I was gonna also say that hi, I'm Helga. Jesse mentioned me a minute ago, and Jared, I've also talked to some instructional designers at your place at DU, and you guys have some really interesting structure for support, which it's been helpful for me to learn about. But I think honestly, the biggest thing that got us in front of faculty was just finding that champion. So I, in particular, had a faculty reach out to me with a question, and then through meeting with her, I got invited to the department meeting, reached out to the department head, so it's like, if you can identify a faculty that really does like enjoy working with, or they enjoy working with you, like you use that connection and mention to them like, hey, are you like, I can come and talk to your colleagues, I can come and help on this other scale, or but before that, it's a lot of, any kind of just mass email or anything was just falling flat. So I think it's a matter of just, again, really finding a good champion and developing that relationship with them to kind of grow throughout their whole team with them.
On truly that relationship. I know I've had that experience of having one. I worked with a faculty, and at the end he was like, I'm telling everyone in my department they need to do this, and this is the best thing ever, and you're such a great resource. And it is, using that maybe as a jump in. Now Helga did mention one. I'm going to give us a few minutes before we go to the next slide here. She says that the mass emails, they just kind of fall flat. So if you know right now something, to kind of move us to that next question that has not worked, we would love to hear that as well. Always save us the failure, if it, as it were. If anyone wants to share one of those strategies that you just know it just has not worked yet.
I can share. I wouldn't say this hasn't worked. I would say it created other problems that we didn't have before. Our model at CSU is a full service model when we're developing courses. So we are all hands on deck. We will do anything and everything for you while you're developing. And then when they go, after they've developed it, so it goes through a review process, it's kind of wrapped up in a bow, we hand it over to the faculty, and then we sort of wipe our hands clean from that development, except for our wonderful instructional technologist, who is one of the facilitators of this meeting, who provides some faculty support, but is one person, and as amazing as he is, that's really challenging. So in doing a really full service model, we've created some issues with maintaining course content from the faculty side, and really just creating, unfortunately, some learned helplessness because somebody has done everything for them. Then now they're not sure how to maintain their course and how to facilitate it. So when we're looking at, how do we improve what our service model is, that's a big component of it, is how do we provide some of that just in time that Jared had mentioned earlier. Because we are thinking way ahead of the future, developing a course maybe a few semesters before it's taught, and then just kind of ghosting them, unfortunately. So I would say that huge deluxe model, and then just not providing any maintenance structure has been a challenge for our faculty. So not that it doesn't work, but it just creates some other challenges.
Well, I'll provide a solution that I think doesn't solve this problem, because my team does a similar thing where we do everything for the instructor. And the solution that was implemented before I joined the team is that we also do term prep for them every year. So we get their syllabus and set the due dates and everything. So it solves the problem of issues because we're just doing all the work. But what happens is, since we maintain like the same relationship between the instructor and instructional designer, so if I work with John Doe on developing his course, I will also help him term prep his course, is that your instructional designers who have been in your team longer have more term prep. That's just like, we're not using our expertise at all because we're too busy like inputting due dates and copying over courses and doing those types of tasks. So don't use that as your solution to your problem because it creates new problems.
That's
Thanks,
actually
Kristen.
very helpful to hear as we're kind of thinking about like, hey, can we jump in during the semester as they're going live, and what can we do for them? It's okay, we need to consider those boundaries, and that maybe is an excellent opportunity to teach there of, okay, we got it all set for you. Now here's how you work in it moving forward, and maybe doing it in the just in time. If I'm developing a course right now, doing the deluxe package, but they're not teaching it till next spring, they don't need me to tell them how to do those things now. They're going to forget it. They've got very busy schedules. They've got a lot on their plate. But coming to them at that beginning, a week before it starts, let's talk about how to build in Canvas. Let's talk about how to use those due date type things. Very mindful to not just do for them, because, oh man, those who have, that's a snowballing effect essentially.
And I know it's kind of addresses this issue, but Jared, I know you guys use the Quick Start Wizard, I think it's called, in City Labs, that like also helps faculty, kind of constrains the damage they can do to their course by just really presenting them with templates and like instructions of like, this is how you do this and like change this thing, right, Jared?
Yeah, we've tried multiple different models of how to like help, both from a design perspective and then also from a facilitation perspective, like because we have so many adjuncts and we have multiple people teaching the same classes and we own the classes, quote unquote. We also use like Canvas blueprints as like the truth, and then we sort of move that along and we say, we're just attaching you to the truth. You put in your personalizations and you do what it is that you need to, if you need to change due dates. So therefore it's like, we know on our end that we're keeping some quality assurance and control, but then it's like, there's some hands up, we need your help. We need you to let us know when things aren't there. And it creates, again, it creates other issues, but it takes away others. So it's like, what are you trying to solve for? And kind of going from there.
That is good. I feel like we could talk on this one a little bit. I do want to bring up to our last question, because I think we're down to like kind of 5 minutes to talk, pushing 10 minutes if we're really pushing. But kind of going in there some now, what are some strategies that we can help us manage our workload? You know, we don't want to get into that snowballing into where literally all of our time is dedicated to doing every single thing for the instructors, with the hopes that they won't damage our courses. Um, but we do need to meet the needs and where they are, because they do have a lot on their plate as well. We're not the only busy ones. They're busy as well. They've got, you know, things coming from all different directions. So how can we provide that support without overextending ourselves? What new approaches or tools are out there that we could put in there? And then you've been kind of hearing it throughout the whole thing. How do we be proactive? Can we do now so that we're not constantly on our, you know, like on the back feet of, we have to react to this now and jump into it. Well, now I can't take care of this. I have to take care of this, which takes us away from the ID part of our work.
I just had a thought. Something that our team at CSU is trying to do is just collaborate more with other support teams, to just learn more, because everything's so siloed. So like we just met with student support services recently just to hear about what they're hearing from students. And it's a lot of things that we're kind of like, oh, well, maybe we can provide training for that, or maybe we can help with that, you know. Again, how to get people to attend those trainings and stuff is the next question. But it's like, it's just this idea that we don't even necessarily hear the feedback that students are giving, and how we can partner with other support services to just learn more about it and learn where we can be more proactive.
Yeah, I see, Kristen, you shared about bringing on the student workers. I know our team and our leadership being very big on reminding us that we have student workers who can take on some of those time-consuming tasks that maybe it is relinquishing the control, and it is that trust. I saw, Nate, you have that great message about remembering to trust both ways, and that yes, our faculty truly do want the best for their students as well. And it's relinquishing, and maybe that's part of it, is part of it, you know, being the idea is relinquishing that control feature, because our faculty want the best for their students as well. And then our student workers, their students who might be in these courses, they want the best as well, and letting them take on some of that work, so that we can put our mental focus somewhere else.
And Nate makes a good point too, that the trust goes both ways of, it again, like in my my classroom teaching, like whenever I entered a classroom with kind of like an adversarial mindset, it never went very well, right? And the like the collaboration of like the things that always worked the best for me were like, look, we both see a problem here. We both want a solution to this. Let's like truly put our heads together and figure out one that, makes sense to us, so definitely get that. One of the things that just we've been kind of looking at on our team is various forms of automation, to try and cut the time sink on some of that repetitive kind of like not minutia, but just things that are can be automated, right? And we're definitely looking into like ways that we can accomplish that with different parts of our task, because then that frees us up to do more things that can't be automated. Like I would shudder at the idea of directing people towards an AI chatbot for these sorts of things. But there are ways to like automate some of our processes that are effective.
Right. We actually just got that 5-minute reminder, and this is such a great discussion. As Jesse said, we already have a Discord channel set up. It is the faculty support Discord channel. It's under the engaging discussions. Very much knew that we would want this conversation to keep going. Maybe ways that we can continue to share ideas, follow up on some ideas. Maybe someone mentioned something briefly and you want them to expand on that a little bit more. And to make connections, you want to reach out to someone, talk to them outside of this particular forum so that you can learn more from them moving forward. Oh, anyone have any last minute like thoughts, questions, or anything like that? Children screaming, neighbors. With that, thank you all for attending, and I hope everyone has a great rest of this fantastic conference. Lots of wonderful topics coming up over today and tomorrow.
Hello, everybody. I'm the moderator, Mouse. Thank you very much, Jesse and Danielle. I have included a survey if you would and could take the moment to fill it out. It's just a link there in the chat. But we still have a couple more minutes if you have any questions or want to say anything else. So thank you guys very much.
Thanks for moderating. Yeah, and we do, just to reiterate, we do genuinely want to like keep talking about this. Like these are things we're trying to figure out with our team and our institution, and so we do really want to like keep communicating with people about this. So thanks for coming.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, if you're still on and you are a faculty member or you're in one of those positions, if you know something that would really help with, we know you have big time constraints, that's incredibly helpful for us to know because we're only on the ID side. We don't know the actual implications of what you all have to do on your day-to-day basis.